Something is different about the SEC this season, and I think that one of the biggest differences, well, there are a ton of them, right, including Texas and Oklahoma, but I think that one of the biggest differences this year is the level of quarterback play. I think that the SEC has had elite quarterback play for a while now, and then I think that maybe a little bit of a dip in that last season. You do get the Heisman winner in Jaden Daniels, and I do understand that. It was Jaden Daniels, then Carson Beck, then, you get Milroe and Jackson Dart. It started to fall off after that. You got Brady Cook thrown in there. So what I tried to do is rank the 5 best quarterbacks in the SEC this year. And I should have done 10. And that's kind of my point. I think that the SEC is deeper at the most important position in 2024. And man, is it going to be quite the season. And we're going to get to see a lot of these guys match up as the year goes on. I think there's going to be a lot of epic battles at the quarterback position. You go through and you look at a lot of the best quarterbacks in college football. Well, I would say that 2 of the top 3 or 4 are probably in the SEC, and there are a few other guys who are not too shabby themselves and will have an opportunity to position themselves for the draft a year from now. So let's get into it. I'm ranking who I think are the 5 best quarterbacks in the SEC. I'm going to go through a few honorable mentions first and discuss the guys that I have just outside of that and some potential. I didn't necessarily want to rank first-year starters, but you'll see what I did here. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post talking about the quarterbacks of the SEC. Right? We know about Carson Beck, but let's talk about Carson Beck and we've been talking about him in relation to the country. Let's talk about him in relation to the conference. Done a lot of videos about him recently. Let's talk about his peers and get to why we think he's at the top, right? So maybe that's spoiled. We're going to be talking about Carson Beck later on in this video, but I think it's deep. My honorable mentions. I threw 5 names up here who I think are honorable mentions. Let's talk about Brock Vandagriff for a second. Kentucky's got weapons, and Kentucky's got a little bit of an identity, and its physicality, and it's what Stoops has been building over the last few years. You lose Ray Davis, and that's going to hurt, but I'm telling you, there are some guys to be excited about on that Wildcats football team, specifically Barryon Brown. I want you to be paying attention to him. Is Vandagriff going to be a top 5 quarterback in the SEC? I don't think so, but I wanted to mention him. This is a guy that's been around a long time and is finally getting his turn somewhere, and at a place that I think could be pretty solid for him. I thought Auburn was his best fit, but there's that. Connor Weigman, I hope I'm pronouncing that one right, the Texas A&M quarterback. He's really good. I've seen him on draft lists a year from now. I've seen him mocked in the first round. Haven't watched a ton of Connor Weigman, but what I do know about him is he doesn't throw a lot of picks, and he has pretty good arm talent, and that's been on display. Texas A&M is not a great situation at the moment, and that's hurting him. Will it turn around? I don't know, but I've got him in kind of my honorable mentions here. These are the guys that it's not this drastic drop-off, but this shows you how deep it is, because I don't think these are any of the top 5 quarterbacks necessarily in the conference this season. Garrett Nussmeier, LSU, he's going to secede. That might not be the right word. He is replacing Jaden Daniels, Heisman winner. Really good the last couple years for LSU. He's better than I thought he was going to be. I did not think he was going to be the Heisman winner, and he did all those crazy things. LSU wasn't as good as it's been, and really just so in 2019, but that was 5 years ago now. So maybe we shouldn't even say something like that. But Jaden Daniels is a big year. Garrett Nussmeier is going to have to follow it up. What I know about Garrett Nussmeier is that dude can sling the football around, and he did it against Georgia's defense. He caught them off guard 2 seasons ago. He's been sitting behind Jaden Daniels. He's been getting all sorts of practice reps. Expect Garrett Nussmeier to put up some pretty good numbers in his first year as the starter. Jackson Arnold, all arm talents there. Is Oklahoma going to be there? He has the opportunity. It's the same kind of concept with Brock Vandagriff and Connor Weigman. Is the situation going to be there? They've got the arm talent. My last guy, and this is my first honorable mention, so number 6. Oh, I hated doing this. Because I wanted to put this guy in the top 5, and I really thought about it, and I got him outside of my top 5. It's Brady Cook of Missouri. Maybe he deserves this, but I did a deeper dive on his numbers, and I've got him pulled up. He just didn't really have big games. You know what I mean? He didn't really have big games. Missouri is a very good football team. He's been very good for them for the last few years. Been watching Brady Cook really grit out some stuff over the last couple of years, give some really good teams a hard time, win some pretty good games. But he hasn't had like these games where it's just like, yeah, that was the Brady Cook game. Yeah, that was. There's just this one little thing missing with Brady Cook. His completion percentage could be a little bit better, 66%. I like his touchdown to INT ratio last year, 21-6. That could be better. He has, in my opinion, probably the best wide receiver in college football this season in Luther Burden, and you need to take advantage of that weapon. Only one game where he had more than 2 touchdown passes in all of 2023, and that was against Vanderbilt. So there were games that just weren't great. There was the Georgia game where he threw 2 picks and had less than 50% completion percentage. There was the Arkansas game where they win, but he didn't really have to do that much. They didn't ask him to do too much. I'm looking at some of these, and it could have been better. Now, Missouri's offense was very much predicated on running the football last year as well. Let's get into the top 5. Let's rattle these off. I can't say your name, bro. I'm going to attempt to say it right now. Nico Yamalavea. Nico. All right? Dude's going to be the starting quarterback for the Tennessee Volunteers. I got him at 5. He's got the least amount of experience out of any of the players that I've discussed in this list so far, having only started 1 game at that bowl game. Ran around and threw around the football against a pretty good Iowa defense. How good is the Iowa defense? Because they play a bunch of crappy Big Ten offenses. I don't know the truth about how good Iowa's defense really is, but they destroyed it. 35-0. Was that the final score? They destroyed it, and I think this guy's got a ton of talent. A lot of the times, talent in quarterbacks can translate immediately. In this case, it'll be year 2 for him. We've seen plenty of really talented guys do well in year 2. Bryce Young's an example, right? It's just an example. Tua Tagovailoa is a great example, actually, in 2018, where he played a little bit in 2017 and balled out in 2018. Think you can get that out of Nico this year. Don't think that's impossible for the Tennessee Volunteers. Let's see if he elevates them. It'll be an interesting matchup. He's going to get marquee matchups against Jalen Milroe, against Carson Beck. You're going to see him on the big stages. Number 4, Jackson Dart. I've always been a little lukewarm about Jackson Dart. I think he's very good. I've never completely understood why he's put in these elite tier categories, but dude's been around a long time. Totally limited the turnovers last year. Had a few big games. You think about the game against LSU where he throws for 4 touchdowns and almost 400 yards, no picks, and they won a shootout. Those games matter to me. Wasn't good against Georgia, right? Quinshon Judkins had their 2 touchdowns. He didn't have a touchdown. You got to be better in those bigger moments. In the bowl game and when it matters against the Penn State defense that's supposed to be really good, he has a really good game with almost 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's going to have really good selection of weapons this year, and I think he's going to have a big year. And I think the SEC at the top is going to get pretty interesting because Ole Miss is subject to get to the SEC championship. Missouri subject to get to the SEC championship, in my opinion. I don't know about Tennessee. Number 3, Jalen Milroe. Ooh, Jalen Milroe. A guy that has been up and down, and then you look at the numbers and it's like, well, they're pretty good. 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. You want something better than 65% completion percentage, but he's a guy that also who is a serious threat with his legs, and ran for 12 touchdowns last year. And I watched make plenty of plays against Georgia with his legs by extending the play and killing Georgia, not in the way that C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young did, but same concept. He just has to be a better passer. I think it's the quarterback position is very much based on how well you can throw football. There's a lot of other things to it. Jalen Milroe does a lot of other things really well. He does have a clutch gene. That SEC championship game matters to me. The Auburn game, as wacky as it is, dude was there in the final moment and put the ball where it needed to be. If he gets elevated with Kalen DeBoer, watch out for Alabama's offense. If he can figure out maybe what Saban and company didn't with Milroe, and maybe that's the real point. If this offense can change and Milroe can really take a step forward as a passer, might be higher on this list. Quinn Ewers is my number 2. Most arm talent on this list. Probably probably. I just haven't seen that many quarterbacks that can throw that sky ball the way that he can. I think that Quinn Ewers, to my eye, who maybe is not trained in the quarterback, who knows? To my eye, these are the things I see Quinn Ewers struggle with. Easy throws, I just see him overthrow a lot. I think that he struggles with the amount of touch he needs to put on a throw, but he has more arm talent than the guy that I have ranked at number 1. I just think that the guy that I have ranked at number 1 does a few things better than Quinn Ewers and does a few things better to me that I think are more important for the quarterback position. I think that's Carson Beck. I think he manages the pocket really well. I was watching a lot of clips yesterday of him escaping sacks, stepping up, making throws under pressure. He can do that. Maybe not as good as a runner outside the pocket. Maybe not as good when, out of structure, right? That's becoming a very popular term, structure. Overrated term. But he's not as good as throwing on the run. I think that Beck is the most accurate quarterback on this entire list. I think that he's got a little bit of big game experience now. He's at least been around for big games. Now he's played in a couple of them. I thought that some of his best games were bigger games. Balled out against Ole Miss. Balled out against Kentucky. Second half when you need everything. Balled out against Auburn. Florida State, waxed him. Right? Waxed him. Even though it was Florida State's, D team? C team? Whatever you want to call it. Carson Beck is not just going to be the best quarterback in the SEC. There's a good chance he's going to be the best quarterback in college football. There's a chance he's going to be the first one taken off the board next year. Georgia, in a situation now where I think they have the best quarterback in the conference and the country, and that puts them in a different position than they've been in the last few years. And guess what? They've been winning national championships. Thanks for watching.